Hello everyone. To start out with, I want to describe the definition of cerebral palsy and then talk to you about the effects of CP on my life. Near the end of this video, I'm going to show a clip of me actually walking. I'm on the beach in Florida. The beach is one of the most difficult surfaces I could ever walk, and it requires so much concentration because I have to be very careful about my balance. My feet get stuck on the sand and my ankle twists, and it's a very good workout, and it's very, very challenging. But I want to show you all what it looks like for me to move through this life. I'm going to first start out with my definition of cerebral palsy. I'm going to read you a textbook answer, kind of on the boring side, but here goes. A condition marked by impaired muscle contraction, typically caused by damage to the brain before or after birth. That's a really boring answer, but that's just what they have to do to characterize a disability. It is not a disease. A disease is something that gets worse with age, like MS, MD, muscular dystrophy, and multiple sclerosis. Both get worse with age. Now I will talk about the pronunciation. Some people say cerebral palsy, some people say cerebral palsy. I prefer cerebral palsy because it's easier for me to say. In my case, my CP, short for cerebral palsy, affects my walking and my balance. I have to grab a hold of a handrail to go up and down stairs. I have to have support going up and down hills, as I've talked about in one of my first videos. And it's just a challenge to walk and watch my balance to see where my feet are actually landing. I have to look at the ground. If I can't see the ground because it's dark outside, I can't walk on it. I don't trust the ground to keep me up. Now it's time for my story. My parents planned for me. They wanted me. My mom knew it was time to have a child. I was born in the middle of the 1960s. I love that concept. I am a hippie at heart myself. I challenge authority all the time. I question everything all the time. I want to understand how things are going to be moving through a process and what the end result's going to look like, and how the end user will be affected by choices made by those making the decisions at the beginning of that chain of thought that's going on there. Anyway, even though 1960s doesn't really affect my disability, I just think it's really fun to align myself to that era of time when everything was being challenged, because I still continue to challenge people, and authority especially, to this day. In utero, I had a great time. Everything was beautiful for 9 months. I don't think anything strange happened. I don't think anything bizarre went on. But I will say, the day I was born, everything was challenged from that point forward. My parents worked really hard to find a doctor, a baby doctor, who would allow my dad to be in the delivery room the day I was born. Back in the 1960s, that was a rare thing, and now it's rare when dads don't go into the delivery room. That's an interesting switch of things over the generations. I believe that since my dad was in the delivery room, that actually was the beginning of our fabulous father-daughter bond. As I was in high school, my mom made sure that my dad and I went out on dates once a semester. And during the last few years of my dad's life, I sat on the couch with him for an hour every Sunday just to talk about life, just how things were going in our lives, what we believed theologically. My dad was a Methodist minister, and I was more of the legalistic Pentecostal belief system for a long time. I'm not there anymore. I'm much more in the middle now, theologically speaking. And just having that father-daughter bond was an incredible experience. I knew my dad was for me. I knew my dad supported me in every way possible. And my mom did too, but my mom did a lot for me medically. She took me to all the therapies I could possibly have gone to. My dad loved to tell the story of the drive my parents took on the way to the hospital the night before I was born. My mom's water broke one evening, and she got into the back seat of the VW Bug to sort of stretch out, which I'm not sure how you stretch out in the back of a VW Bug, but she did. And all she could say to my dad was, "Can't you drive faster? Can't you drive faster? Can't you drive faster?" I'm like, she was ready to have me. Oh my gosh. And they were told, if at all possible, to stay in the hospital parking lot until midnight. That way they wouldn't be charged. Well, they couldn't wait. At 11 p.m., they checked into the hospital, and I was born between 2 and 3 in the morning. All my mom could tell me was it was dark outside. She had no idea what time it was. I looked it up on my birth certificate. It was between 2 and 3 in the morning. As my mom was working her contractions on the birthing bed, they gave her a very strong epidural. That epidural caused her contractions to shrink. They were not as strong as they should have been to push me out. So the nurse had to push me out of my mom, and somewhere in that process, my body got stuck in the birth canal, and I'm going to assume that I lost oxygen in that process. My umbilical cord was not wrapped around my neck, which I'm very thankful for, but somehow in that process my oxygen was deprived, and the brain damage is somewhere back here. That I'm thinking it's somewhere back here, because that's where the motor control for moving and walking and balance is located, is back here. During the first year of my life, my parents did not know there was anything, quote, wrong with me. It wasn't until I started to walk. And about 16 months, I walked with a very weird gait, unusual gait, not appropriate gait. And they found out that my hips were not on their sockets. And there was a surgery that was done to remedy that situation, which I'm very, very glad for. And then at the same time, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. Over the years, I went through leg braces, physical therapy. I did a lot of exercises at home. I had to wear shoes nailed to a board to go to bed. I thought that was very strange. Honestly, I felt like a medical experiment that failed. I have never heard of anybody now wearing shoes to bed nailed to a board. I've never seen kids wearing the leg braces I wore when I was a kid. I just felt like they tried so hard to make me change, and it did not work. When I was 17 years old, I went to my orthopedic surgeon for the last time. I had been going to an orthopedic surgeon every year from the time I was born until I turned 17. And he said to me there was nothing else he could do for me. And I believed him. It took 20 years until my middle 30s. Someone challenged me in church and said to me, "Don't wait for God to heal you. Go to a chiropractor." So I've been going to a chiropractor now for 25 years. I love chiropractic. It helps put things into alignment. It puts the bones in proper space. And a really good chiropractor also will provide supplements to encourage the healing process that you're going through. Now I go to a person who's a chiropractor and also an applied kinesiologist. That means she does NET, neuro-emotional technique, chiropractic, and muscle tests with supplements to make sure the muscle testing is working with the supplement. So she puts the supplement on my body and then muscle tests me with my arm to see if my body likes it or not. And there are a lot of pills I've taken her of that. She goes, "Your body can't stand this stuff." So I prefer that over a doctor just throwing a bunch of pills at me and saying, "Here, try these pills and see if they work." Yeah, no, it's not gonna, that doesn't do it for me. Because I have CP, I use up 2 to 3 times more energy in the day to get through it. And because of that energy output, the minerals in my bones have become depleted. And therefore, I now have profound osteoporosis. thank goodness my chiropractor's given me enough of the right kind of pills, right kind of supplements. I'm not taking any prescription medications. I just don't want to do that. It scares me way too much. So the supplements I take have at least maintained my profound osteoporosis so that I am not getting worse. I'm not getting better either, but at least I'm not getting worse. So I'm really fighting it between my pills and my exercise and my creams. I have now given you the medical part of my story. I'm now going to go into the emotional part of the story. When I was little, like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, I don't remember thinking of myself as different. I thought of myself like everybody else. I didn't know I was different. It didn't even cross my mind. I had a few friends in preschool. And then when I was in first grade, I was 7 years old, I started to realize that I was being treated different. I was being left out. I did not have recess friends. I did not have neighborhood friends. I spent a lot of time in my bedroom, not because I was in trouble, but because I had nowhere else to go. My bedroom was my safest place. And I do remember having posters of my teen idols back then. I had Sean Cassidy, Donny Osmond, and Leif Garrett. So that part of me was normal. I just didn't have a normal life outside of my house. I also vividly remember being picked last for PE every single time. The 2 classes, whether it was first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, or fifth grade, the 2 classes of each grade, we would go into the gym, the teachers would pick out the team captains and say, here, pick your teams, and the teachers would go into the corner of the gym and talk and have their coffee together. The team captains would pick the fastest and the best and the whatever, and every single time, and I'm not joking, every single time I was picked last. I don't have any memory of being invited to birthday parties from kids in my classroom. It didn't even cross my mind. I don't know if they didn't have birthday parties or they just had a select few that were invited to their birthdays or how it worked, but I have no memory of going to birthday parties of kids in my classroom. I did have a couple of friends whose birthdays I did go to in elementary school, but I didn't have the big birthday parties that I was invited to. I also didn't date in high school or college. I was so insecure, let's just say that. I was very insecure. I was on the outside observing. I was observing all the time, paying attention. I was so afraid of being seen or heard. I didn't open my mouth. I didn't talk much to anybody. I still have a hard time sharing myself when I'm with people. I'm a very good listener, but I still have a hard time sharing myself. Partly I think it's because I am an INFJ. It's from the Myers-Briggs personality test. When I was in junior high, my parents agreed to send me to a private school, which I was so thankful for. I felt safe there. It was on a huge campus, on a big river. I loved school tremendously there. My class was so small. By the time we got to seniors, to being seniors, there were 25 in my graduating class. That's how small the school was. I loved it. I had a few friends. I had a few slumber parties. And my mom was the one that orchestrated it, tried to make sure I had some kind of social life. And I did eat lunch with those people in junior high and high school. I will say that. But I also remember being alone a lot, even then. But at least I felt safe. That was worth a lot to me. Back to the whole rejection issue. I have had a lot of rejection in this life. And it has happened over and over and over and over again. And so I started to learn that I am not worth much. I'm not incorporated like other people. I'm not asked my opinion. My words are not believed. My ideas are not considered. So just a lot of rejection has happened. And so I've had to fight. Again, I've had to fight to be seen and to be heard. Thank goodness I had fabulous parents. My mom made sure that we had dinner at the table, all four of us, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. She made sure we had dinner as a family every single night to talk about our day, to share our lives. And I'm so thankful I had a safety net in my own family, because I definitely did not have a safety net out in the real world. To this day, in my 60s, well, I'm 60 years old, I still experience very subtle rejection. People will say, oh, I didn't invite you to this event because the walking would have been too difficult for you. Like, let me make up my own mind. I have a brain. I know what's right for me. I know how my body works. Don't make a choice for me. Really? We're still doing that now? I also have tried to volunteer in multiple agencies in my hometown. And I'm not quite sure why they don't put me to work, but it just seems very suspicious to me. In one specific case, I talked to the volunteer coordinator in person 3 times, and still nothing happened. In other situations where the request for a volunteer is sent out, either in church or other locations, not in my current church, but in my previous church, the request is sent out, I show up, oh, we already have it filled. Yet there are people new working in that environment, working with a different program in the church. After seeing those kinds of things over and over and over again, and being told, no, we don't need you over and over and over again, it really eats away at me, and I begin to wonder what is intrinsically wrong with me. As I said, I'm going to show you a video, so that's coming up next. This video was taken at the end of March, so 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I went to Florida to visit a friend of mine. We used to be housemates, and I go visit her. I try to go visit her once a year, but it's been kind of challenging for different issues. And so I just want to show you that video of my walking and how hard it is to walk on sand, just as a person with a physical limitation.
Okay.
Keep going.
I had to go to the couch to get my Bible. I want to share something from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 10. Our hearts ache, but we always have joy. We are poor, but we give spiritual riches to others. We own nothing, and yet we have everything. Paul was really good at defining that we have riches and good things, and we had kind of ache and pain at the same time. There's a balance. We can feel the pain, and we can see the goodness of God. And that's a huge gift, to be able to see both, but don't let the pain take you down. And remember that there's something beautiful that God is creating for all of us. It is possible to live with both at the same time. And as we move forward, I want to share with you all in the coming videos how I have found more joy and peace in this life. So until then, love to you all.